Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Obi suspects his girlfriend of infidelity after noticing her odd behavior. When confronted, she lies about her whereabouts, but surveillance footage from a neighbor reveals her entering a neighbor's apartment. Confronted again, she confesses and moves out, later finding temporary housing with a family friend. The neighbor's girlfriend also learns the truth, confronting her boyfriend. Despite the pain, the man hopes to move forward with faith and integrity. Now let's get into the story. My girlfriend and I had just moved in together for a year. I thought everything was great. We each went to our respective jobs and spent time together at home when we were off. She got home 4 hours before I did, and usually got changed, made dinner, did some cleaning and stuff around the house, and whatever leisure activities suited her mood. When I got back, she would update me on her day, and vice versa. These things didn't happen when I got home one night. I noticed she was still wearing her work clothes, only just starting on dinner, and looked worried that I was back already. I asked her what was going on, and she played dumb. I asked her if she just got home because it was obvious. She said yes, reluctantly, and seemed to be trying in vain to come up with the reason why she'd be back so late. I pressured her, and she didn't like that. She snapped and said she didn't think it was fair for me to be questioning her like this. Then she threw out that she stopped at the store after work, and I did notice one grocery bag that she still hadn't unpacked. I looked inside, and it had a room temperature bag of shrimp in it. I asked if she planned on cooking them since whatever she was keeping from me gave it enough time to thaw out. I continued pressuring her to tell me where she was after the store, but she refused and eventually settled for sleeping on the couch, so I would leave her alone. I brainstormed, but I couldn't think of what to do. I looked at her phone, but it was clean as a whistle, which made me second-guess myself. I was wrong for doing that because it was obvious something was different. The next morning, after she already left, one of our neighbors came to me with something that would change the course of our lives. She said she had something upsetting to show me, but I needed to know. She showed me her Ring camera recorded motions. It was my girlfriend in each clip, entering a neighbor's door adjacent to this lady's own front door. She looked happy in each clip, but the first one explained everything. She said she locked herself out of our apartment, but that was a lie. AP invited her inside, and she didn't come out until 45 minutes later, leaving with a huge smile holding her keys. The next clips were similar, but each time took less introduction and eventually none. I thanked this woman for showing me the evidence. I thanked her as genuinely as I could. She sent the clips to me. Funny that my girlfriend arrived home and parked the car right on time that day. She wasn't too happy to see me standing by the stairs, but it was nothing compared to how she was about to feel. I showed it to her, and she started stammering. She looked at me, back to the phone, back to me. She slowly suggested that he needed help moving some stuff around, and accepted her help cleaning. I laughed and suggested we go ask him. I grabbed her by the hand, and we walked up the stairs, but at the top, she started to pull away. I told her if she was seeing a man every day alone, in his apartment, I should know him as well as she does. I knocked on his door, and as soon as he saw us, he slammed it shut. I let go of my girlfriend's hand like it was a snake. I called her a cheater and sped walk to my apartment to shut her out, locking the top lock as well. She screamed no, and all the words guilty women say. She kept knocking on my door for a while. I eventually opened it just the crack that the chain would allow and slipped her phone. I needed her to get off my doorstep sometime that night. At one point, I noticed she went to AP's house to knock on the door, but their exchange was quite short. Turns out, he had a girlfriend. She was eventually picked up, and some older man I never saw helped her load her stuff into his van. I found out later that it was a friend of her father's who was looking to rent out his unfinished basement. It did not sound ideal, But my wife had no choice and no friends to take her in on such short notice and under these shameful circumstances. When they asked why and wanted to know what was going on, she tried to lie, but that only made the situation seem less severe. They gave her some advice, but mostly encouraged her to work things out with me. She eventually settled into the crappy bed she made for herself. One day, when I got home from work, I bumped into AP's girlfriend on the way into his apartment. I asked her if that was her boyfriend's door, and she said yes, curiously. I said there was something she needed to know, and it grabbed her attention. She watched the videos of my girlfriend entering, and she was shocked. She banged on the door and pushed him inside when he opened it, screaming at him and slamming the door behind her. So at least she knew the truth. I know these things happen, and I'm trying to keep my head up in good faith that I handled this the right way and hopefully won't be hurt again. Today's second story. Now let's get into the story. My girlfriend, 36, admittedly had a thing for older men. I, 49, was surprised. She came on to me at a bar one night after I'd worked all day at my construction job. We started talking, and I couldn't help but see the good in her that she wanted me to see. She had a son who was 16 at the time. His father left them suddenly when he was just 9 years old, so he had very little faith in any man to become his father figure. I felt for this boy because I too grew up without my father. I wanted to be there for him even before I met him. My girlfriend and I started dating, so shortly after that I met her son Chris. He was definitely resistant to getting to know me, but wouldn't tell me why right away. After 1 year of failed attempts at bonding, he finally told me I wasn't going to be around long enough for him to trust me. I told him I didn't intend on leaving and wanted to be someone he could look up to. I didn't tell him, but I really loved his mom already. Then he told me it wouldn't be my fault. When our relationship ended, I was confused. I asked him what he meant, and he said his mom had 5 boyfriends since his dad left. I was surprised, but still not completely deterred. Maybe those men weren't suitable to be a father example. Now I realize I was just defending the woman I fell for. Without knowing her all too well, I decided to talk with my girlfriend about it. She came off as defensive, reminding me that she said her son didn't trust any man. When I told her, he said it wouldn't be my fault. She didn't have a response for that. A part of me could tell she was plain dumb and just blaming her ex for her son's fears. Even though that might not be why I decided to stick around, believing I could prove this negative premonition wrong. Honestly, I cared for her and her boy so much, sometimes I wonder if my heart is too big. Chris and I did manage to have several deep talks and bond with each other. I took him wherever he wanted to go and gave him honest answers I would have craved as a teenager without my father. Then one day, everything came to a screeching halt. Chris barged into the house crying and yelling for me, followed by his confused mother. He quickly told me that what he warned me about had happened before his mother could interrupt or have any idea what he was going to say. He said he saw his mother having intimate with his teacher. Then he added, "This is what he warned me about 2.5 years ago." His mother and I gasped. He continued by saying she thought he was going to his friend's house after the parent-teacher conference, but he felt like he needed to stay for some reason. He waited in the car for her to come out. When she didn't come out of the school, he went back in and peeked through the skinny window in the door of his classroom. Even though they turned off the lights to make it dark, he saw them in the corner of the room. My would-be stepson then said now that I knew the truth, I could kick them out. He was used to it and said he didn't need me or her. He went upstairs to pack and his mom stepped in to quietly tell me he didn't see what he thought he saw. Her face was red and she just looked desperate for me to believe her lies. She started crying when I didn't say anything and just stared at her. She told me again that it wasn't true, but her son heard her and asked if she was calling him a liar. She screamed that this was adult business and it was none of his concern. He screamed that it was his concern because she was taking away any chance he had to find a father or a home. I said if her son is telling me he saw something that would make him have to leave me and his home, I'm likely to believe him over her. Her son then said I should trust him because he would never want to marry a woman like his mother. She screamed when she heard him say that she was just beside herself, collapsed onto the floor. I told her she needed to get out of my house and we were done. I wished her luck finding another place to live. I went upstairs and told Chris that if he ever needed to come to my house, my door would be open. He also had my phone number. He was about to be 18, so if he sought my company, his mother wouldn't be able to do anything about it. They left in a packed car, and she found them a new place to stay, but it was with a creepy stranger. When Chris turned 18, he moved in with me. It was an incredibly happy day for us, but not so much my ex. She hated it. She tried to say it couldn't happen, but it most definitely could and did. I acted as his father and continued to while he lives on campus. It's a relief that neither of us depends on his mother. He still keeps in touch with her, but he's learned to keep his distance emotionally after all the instability she put him through. I guess karma hits hard, though. After Chris moved in with me, she was diagnosed with an STD. That is hard to ignore or manage. She also had another baby at the age of 41. I'm pretty sure she doesn't know who the father is. Speaking of that, per Christopher's request, we submitted a complaint to the school board about the teacher that slept with his mom. Our letter was taken very seriously by them, so the teacher was fired immediately. They asked Chris if there was anything else they could do, but he was happy with that. I didn't care what his mom was up to anymore because she wasn't much of a loss. I was glad I got to keep Chris in my life, though. So maybe everything happens for a reason. Today's third story. In this story, Opie reflects on his journey from humble beginnings to becoming an engineer at 29. He keeps his profession mysterious to his girlfriends, including his future wife. His uncle, a father figure, helps vet his wife's character. However, suspicions arise when she frequents a nightclub with another man. Confronted, she admits to cheating, leading to divorce. He moves on, thankful to dodge a life-altering mistake. Now let's get into the story. I guess you could say I started from the bottom and now I'm here. I became an engineer by the age of 29. I had a few non-serious girlfriends during that time. I never told them what I was studying because I never felt like they needed to know. I guess I was pretty mysterious in my dating life. I did the same thing when I met my future wife. She didn't have very much money, but she could take care of herself while we dated. She met my uncle a few times at family gatherings because I wanted him to help me decide if she was a great quality woman. My uncle became an involved father figure to me after my father died when I was young. My wife knew this, but she didn't know that he owned a nightclub in San Antonio that we frequented in our dating and early married life. I opened my own tech store, so I was there a lot. My wife worked with me side by side for years. My elderly mother cleaned the office for us sometimes, even though I told her to take it easy. She lived in the same house as my wife and I, but she never intruded on our space because the house was big enough for us all. She cleaned for us, and I guess that was the most invasive she got. But my wife actually complained about this to me. She was annoyed that my mom walked in on her changing and routingly put her clothes away in the wrong drawers. I was shocked and mad that she was complaining about this. My mother was being so sweet by taking care of our laundry for us, even folding it and putting it away. It was extremely inconsiderate and unfair for my wife to complain like she was. This was my mother, not a maid that stole from her or something. I put her in place about this, making it clear that she can forgive my mother for any accidents or organizational mishaps because we love and appreciate her and what she does. After this, my wife was pretty passive-aggressive towards me, and she started looking at her phone a lot, even as we worked at the shop together. When I asked her about it, she told me she wanted to go out with her friends since it had been a while. I reminded her that I had to work late to label new inventory. She said she knew that, and she was hoping I wouldn't mind if she went alone with her girlfriends, knowing she would probably go to my uncle's club. I let her. I was suspicious, so I told my uncle that she was behaving this way, and he told me he'd keep an eye on her. I stayed working late while she went out with girlfriends. This same thing happened several more times over the course of a few months. On the sixth night, she went out. My uncle called me. He told me he'd seen her come in with the same guy several times. She was sending me pictures of herself, but never with a man beside her. My uncle said he was across from her whenever she took a picture. She even asked some girls she didn't know to pose in a picture with her. So I believe her. We decided to confront her mafia style. I drove there, snuck up to the third-floor balcony and waited, dressed in a suit for security to bring my wife and AP to me. They were super confused and irritated at first, but when my wife saw it was me, her face turned a light shade of green. My uncle stepped forward and told them he owned this venue and knew she was cheating on his nephew. AP wisdom founded, then my uncle left us alone so that we could talk. She started apologizing profusely, begging me to forgive her because she didn't know my uncle owned this place. I asked how that was supposed to pardon her from cheating on me. I said it was lucky I kept his ownership a secret. Otherwise, she might have gotten away with dating this guy as long as she wanted. She took this chance to tell me they never slept together and that AP is gay, so I should forgive her and we could pretend this never happened. She looked at him like she needed him to lie for her. I could see everything that happened between them, but my wife tried really hard to look innocent and truthful. I asked AP if this was true or if he had been intimate with my wife. He looked extremely nervous and put on the spot. He asked if I was going to kill him, which gave me a good laugh. Once I assured him I wouldn't, he couldn't resist bragging that he took her to his apartment several times. She screamed no over and over as I told her she was fired and I would be filing for divorce. She fell to her knees, realizing her life of luxury and endless fortune was gone. Her plans for renovating the kitchen were gone. Her beauty fountain and garden were no longer hers. She told me she realized she was a stupid fool to spend time with AP or even trust another man. I just told her the unforgivable thing was her sleeping with him. I thanked AP for telling me the truth while she continued crying her eyes out. She said she knew she didn't deserve my forgiveness, but if I didn't, she could never recover or move on in life. I said I didn't care what happened to her now because she proved herself to be less than worthy of my love and financial security. She was bawling as my uncle came out to the balcony and had security escort them out. She was banned from returning to the club. I partied hard for a few days and took a break from work. I met my next loving woman that way and got a lot of grief out of my system. I was glad I didn't have children with her and was able to stay strong and resist taking her back when she came to get her stuff out of the house. I made a lot of friends, and it wasn't hard to find someone worthy of the job my wife had at the tech shop.